telling you, I worked in that church for 2 weeks now, tearing out, and I have not had but just one moment. Oh, man. And then when they show these pictures, it's like I'm attending a funeral or something. You know what I'm saying? They started showing these pictures this morning, and it's like, where's the Kleenex? I know it surprises you that I would cry, but, right? That's another thing. I've never looked at myself on a big screen like that. Like, balding and stuff, gray, and there's all that stuff. Well, hello, fellow nomads who wandered the lands of Beaumont looking for a church to rest in. I'm so grateful for, again, Calvary, Nathan and Calvary, for extending this facility. We appreciate them for letting us use this for the next 5 years. It'll save us on our electrical bill. Just joking, Nathan, if you're watching. Just joking, wherever you are. Where's the cameras? No, it's good to see you guys. And I know you're kind of wondering, what's going on with Praise Church. And we received 4.5 feet of water, which the first report that I got was from Tammy, because I couldn't get out of our house, our neighborhood. I could, but it just wasn't, couldn't get to Beaumont. And so Tammy let me know, she says, it's all the way up to my nose. And when I heard that, I was like, man, that's sweet. That's good news. We probably didn't lose anything if it just got up to her nose, but I was wondering if she was in here. But, we were able to save a few things. Got 20,000 square feet of the bottom floor, and it's a big pile out in the parking lot. You drive by there and look at it, and that's our church. That was the contents of our church. But good news, we were able to save a few things. I want to show you some of those things that we were able to save, give you encouragement. We were able to save the bathroom markers, so we won't have any confusion about which bathroom to go to. All right, that's good. And we were able to save the teacup candles. Christmas candlelight is still on. You got a problem with that? And then we got this big pot here. It's been scrubbed. It's got a little odor still, but it's been scrubbed. Your next gumbo, right? We all eat gumbo together. And then, there was one thing that I really, really wanted to show you guys. So glad that was saved, but I'll have to go over here. Come on, buddy. Y'all think I'm bringing in a goat or something, don't y'all? No. See, we saved the mannequin, the Praise Church mannequin. He's good to go. Yeah. Oh, dude needs to go on a diet. He's heavy. All right, so here he is. He was the model for 412 and PYA with all their clothing, but now he's got a Servolution shirt. And it's, not just good, but it's right. He's got the same pants on that we found him floating in our cafe. His pants probably really nasty. And you ought to see it today. I was bringing him over in the back of my truck. It's like, people were looking. Dude ain't got a head. Hey, got a guy without a head in the back of your truck. He's all right. He's been around, so he's going to help me preach. He's going to raise his hand. Hallelujah. There you go. He's just going to praise the Lord. That's my boy. So he's going to help me there, and if I say anything bad, then just let me know. But if I say it all good, you don't have to say anything. So that's to be safe. But this is where we are as a church, and yesterday we were able to send out an army of people into the community with people that are visiting, that we're housing. AAA Rentals letting us use a warehouse, and we were able to bring people in. We're drying out our facility right now, which is incredible, the way that we got to be able to dry it out. This is disturbing me. About knocked me in the head. We're drying out the building right now. It's probably about 80-90% demoed. Here's how we got to it. So we called in G&G Contractors, which is doing our major move build. And we said, hey, we need someone to walk through, a contractor who knows how to tell us how much sheetrock is needed and all this stuff. And so he came in, Colin came in, and as we were taking him throughout the building, he said, we were talking, he just said, hey, I'm going to bring in my employees this Saturday to demo the building for you. And my first question was like, but Colin, how much is that going to cost us? He said, it's on my company. And listen, yesterday he brought in 49 of his paid employees, and he paid them from 8 in the morning until 5 to demo our church. And here's why. He said, because I want you guys to be working in the people's homes. And yeah, he's a good dude. He allowed us to leave what we had as our church, as our facility, to be able to go work in the community. And again, we were able to get out there. And then we will know hopefully tomorrow what the scope of the loss is. We know that within our preschool department, that inventory's come in. There's like $16,000 that's come in. That's not, that's doable. Tables, chairs, TVs, things like that, carpets, whatever. But we still have the inventory of the furniture and the fixings, the HVAC, commercial kitchen equipment, but we won't know that until electricity is restored, which is happening hopefully tomorrow. And then slowly by one, we can start flipping the breakers just to see what's working, what's not. We really need our HVAC to be working. That would be a huge expense. As you well know, we've got some big units in there. And so we'll be able to test out the speakers that's been sitting in the humidity and the sound equipment and all the technology that we use to run the facility. But God is meeting us, and this is where it's going to build our faith. And I mean, really, again, I said this last week, we know the end of the story. We know it's going to be good at the end of the story. It's just, you got this book, and the end of the book is good, but it's the chapters, there's always conflict. There's the protagonist, antagonist, and it's all this conflict going in. And so you just got to walk through that, but all throughout there, God's with us, because that's when Jesus came down to say, hey, I'm not going to take you out of this world, but I'm going to come into this world with you. I'm not going to insulate you from the troubles, but I will inoculate it. If you will accept me, I will inoculate it. It doesn't have to get inside of you. It doesn't have to destroy you. So we're walking through that, and we know that the story is going to end well. So in addition to that, and God being faithful, showing his faithfulness to us, there's a church in Oregon that has adopted us. And they're going to send a contractor down to stay for 30 days. This is next week, I think next Monday. And then they're going to create a pipeline from Oregon to Beaumont, Texas, and at least keep 15 people here at all times until we can get this thing rebuilt. And they let us know this past week that they are going to buy all of our sheetrock. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Hey, you guys remember this moment, because when this moment's over with and we're back on our feet, we have a building, we're doing this for other people, all right? We're going to return the favor. It's not paying it forward. We're not going that. We're just going to respond to what God's done for us. We're going to be generous to other people and be ready to serve them. Now, in addition to that church, there's a church in Pennsylvania that we were connected with because someone in our church, Tucker Ferguson, is from Pennsylvania, was attending that church, and then he came down here. So there was a connection. When they heard that there was issues here in Southeast Texas, they contacted him. How can we help your church? And he connected them to us, and last Sunday night after our service, I met them at our church, and they gave us gloves and water and masks and gave me some gift cards. And so that's what we've been asking. People say, what do you need? You need water? No. You need Clorox? No, we got enough Clorox for years. You need diapers? No. And by the way, I'm using diapers next time instead of sandbags. We found like 30 diapers in the church. They were about this big. I ain't lying. I'm like, why would I use a sandbag? I'm just putting diapers in front of my house next time. It's like, your house didn't flood. Nope, I had Huggies. I'm good. I like that one. That's good. You got Jim in the first service, and that's good. Keep it up. So this church from Pennsylvania, when they were, here's what we're learning. If people come in our church and see what the damage, because I don't know of any other church in Beaumont that received that much damage, if any, but once they see that, they're like, how can we help? And the moment they stepped into our church, they drove like, I don't know, I forget how many hours, like 24, I don't know how long it is, 36 hours from there here, and they were like, get the cell phone out, and just taking pictures, and by the time they left, I knew their heart had been touched. And he said, we'll be back with a box truck. We're going to get home as soon as we can so we can send it back. And he's like, what do you need? We need manpower. We need money. We need gift cards. That's what we need. I don't need goods. We don't need anything other than that. And so I learned this week that Tucker was going to Pennsylvania to visit his mom. And when they found that out, they asked Tucker if he would come on stage and explain to his church of 2,000 people about our church and the needs of it. And so I wanted to find out this morning if it was legit. And I logged on and I watched them live, and they brought Tucker Ferguson on stage to talk about Praise Church. And these pictures that you saw was on the big screen at Pennsylvania, at their church. And they were talking about how they can be a help and an assistance. It's just incredible how God is showing himself faithful. And we know that in the story, but it's really cool to build our faith. And just to have these groups come in from out of town and stay in a warehouse to work. There's groups right now that came in to work for Praise Church that they're working in a home right now. They're not at any church. They're in homes of Praise people. And that's an incredible testimony. That they're going to keep coming in, and we're going to try to work to keep groups coming in until there's a need to do so. So for the next minutes, I don't know, there's no end to this service, so should have come to the 2 o'clock. I don't think there was there was a seat because Jimmy asked a couple of rows to come sit on the floor. The student ministry gave up. But before that, there was not a seat open in here. And so we'll just go till I think the message is across. I've got about 7 messages I'd like to preach in this one message. All right, so last week I talked about Nehemiah. Here's why I'm talking about Nehemiah. Nehemiah was in a huge rebuilding project. It's the same thing we are. So it's almost like, it's not apples to apples, but it's as close as we can get as far as a historical Bible story. And it begins in Nehemiah 1. It goes like this, and we'll throw out a few weird names, and then if we get past that, don't let that disturb you. But the words of Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah, now it happened in the month of Chislev, in the 20th year as I was in the Susa, the citadel, that Hananiah, one of my brothers, he came with certain men from Judah, and I asked them concerning the Jews who escaped, the ones that have survived the exile, and concerning Jerusalem. Basically said, how are they doing? And they said to me, the remnant there in the province who had survived the exile is in great trouble and shame. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates are destroyed by fire. So you've got Nehemiah in Babylon. He's been exiled there, taken out of Jerusalem, his hometown, brought to Babylon because the king wanted to bring the brightest. That's where, the 3 Hebrew children, that's the same exile that they were taking, the brightest, the best, the smartest, the richest, the people that you could build a society in. And then they destroyed, in essence, Jerusalem, tore down the gates. And now he's a cupbearer to the king, which means that he tastes the food and the drink before the king eats it. So if someone's knocking off the king, it'll knock him off first. And his brother comes and he asks Hananiah, says, how's it back home? Hananiah says, not good. People are in distress. The city's in trouble. And then it says, as soon as I heard these words, I sat down and I wept and I mourned for days. And I continued fasting and praying before the God of heaven. And I really can relate with this because for Nehemiah, this was his home. This was his people. This was his family. And it wasn't like I just have a strong emotion like boo-hoo, a couple days, and then we're going to get beyond this. I'm back to being a cupbearer to the king. It was like something that got inside of him, and it was more than an emotion. It was a conviction that he had to do something about it. I pray that you have a conviction that this is just not an emotion that we go through right now, that we need to do something about this flood, about the people that we know, but there is a conviction that if you have the ability to help in any way, finances, skills, time, encouragement, that you would be willing to step up. And here's what he did. He said, as soon as I heard these words, I sat down and I wept. I mourned for days. I continued fasting. And basically said, God, what can I do? I pray that your prayer isn't, God, help these people. I pray that your prayer is, God, how can I help these people? Because we can sit and we can pray, God, help, send these people somebody. And basically what I think as followers of Christ, this is our family, as our brothers and sisters, that we begin to pray, God, whatever resources I have, may I procure those resources or secure resources so that I can get those to the channels that need to have. So he's devastated by this news. It's like we look at this and some people may say, well, how long are you going to talk about Harvey? When are we going to go on and get into a Bible series or Bible teaching? Well, right now we need to mobilize the troops. We don't need sideways energy. What I mean by that, we need everybody going in the right direction, in the same direction, because as a larger group, it's like a stream going the same direction for a long period of time has greater momentum. We all need to be going in the same direction so that we can make the biggest impact in this area. And we say, you know what, how long are we going to stay this? This is getting a little old. Because I asked the group from Pennsylvania, I said, you know what, all the images I hear there's lots of images of this coming through the news and on the internet. Are you guys getting tired of seeing this? And his response really quick, yep. And I understand. Because I do it watching TV and I see a tragedy. I go, oh, that's terrible, click. Or the news. I see a news piece, oh, that's terrible, that happened. It didn't affect me, but that's terrible. But I don't feel it. But let me tell you, we got people in our church, 60 plus families who's waking up every day and it's not old news. And it's not fake news. They're living this. Retirement's affected. Work is affected. Families are affected. They're displaced. We have a family of 5 living in a home, another home of another member of ours here. You take a family of 5 living in a single home, and he's got an infant, and there may be more kids than that. I don't know, but I'm just saying, while it doesn't affect some of us, it affects our family. And I'm telling you what, if something affected my mom's home, I don't care if I'd be 2 hours away. I'd be at my mom's home taking care of my mom because my dad's gone. That's what it would do. But just like it's like our brothers and sisters are here. Just as my mom is my physical family, we have been adopted by Jesus, which makes us brothers and sisters, which now makes us kin. In other way, we're going to take care of our own family. So it's not old news, right? And what's really odd here is that we're almost like we're living in 2 different worlds. Because there's one road that you can go down, and there's stuff piled up 5 feet high, and you can go into another edition. It's like kids running around saying nothing ever happened. And if you're not careful, your disconnect from the people can cause you not to have compassion, not to be a bad person, just not to feel compassion. And I want every one of you, I would love every one of you to connect and feel the compassion and the loss. If you feel like you're disconnected from this and that you should be feeling more about this, the reason why is because you have not been in a home of someone that's lost a lot of stuff. You get into a home with a family who's got everything of their belongings out on the front lawn, little Raggedy Ann, family pictures, vases, and all their clothes, and you get to talk to them, and you get to sit down with them, and you get to get dirty with them, then you have compassion. In fact, if you feel like you're disconnected, do yourself a favor and drive through Bevel Oaks today, or Pinewood, or Northwest Forest. Just drive through. And imagine, if this was my home, every bit of my belongings would be in my front yard right now. Everything. Try to work your way to have some sympathy and some empathy to get into their shoes so that us as a church, get in their home. You say, well, I can't do anything. Well, if you can't do physical labor, there's phone calls that can be made. There's little things, even like today, I talked to one of our families before coming to church, just called and said, hey, how are you guys doing? How can we help you? She said, well, we're inventorying all of our clothes right now, inventorying everything in the house. Now, can you imagine you inventorying every single item in your house? I know Will and Courtney had to do the same thing. She said, we don't have internet service. She said, so we have to do everything on our phone. I'm going, no way. I said, what if we could get you 2 people with 2 laptops, and we could have the, MiFi, these connectors for you to the internet, and they could be looking up the inventory while you pick it out, because they're picking it out with gloves on. Then they have to take their gloves off and enter it in. I'm like, no way, we can help you out. So these are little things. Everyone is involved. Everyone needs to be involved at Praise Church. Everybody needs to be involved. Nobody needs to be sitting at home. Nobody. If you have the ability to help out. Because no one's idle so that no one has to build alone in our church. Nobody. So we have to help out. So we want to keep that compassion high. So he goes before the king. Nehemiah goes before the king to see if the king will send him back. He says, in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of the king, when wine was taken before him, he said, I took up the wine and gave it to the king. Now I had not been sad in his presence. And the king said to me, why is your face sad, seeing that you're not sick? This is nothing but sadness of the heart. Then I was very much afraid. And I said to the king, let the king live forever. Why should not my face be sad when the city, the place of my father's graves, lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire? Then the king said to me, what are you requesting? So I prayed to the God of heaven, and I said to the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, that you send me to Judah, to the city of my father's grave, that I may rebuild it. And here's what happened. The king not only said okay and granted him his request, but he also gave him resources. Now I want you to see, in that situation, you can look back at this when you read the story and say, wow, here's how God worked. God worked through the king. God worked by giving him papers to travel. God worked by him securing timber to send along the way. But right now, we can look back on this situation, and we can look back at churches that adopted us, that sent scouts into Southeast Texas that we knew not of until they walked into our church and said, you know what? I think we want to adopt you. What's your name? Say, oh, Daddy. It's like, I love you, man. I don't even know you, but thank you. But I want you to see that just as this story, you see God's faithfulness. It's like in every story, like God's got a huge, what is the name of it? It's a narrative, but it's the big narrative. It's the, whatever it is. It's the big narrative. But in this big narrative, there's little bitty narratives that work with the big narrative. And God's working. He's in the big story. If he's in the big story, he's in the little stories. This is a little story that how God's working in us. So the king has granted him to go back. He goes back in the stay of night under the cover of darkness. Nehemiah must be a really good leader. I love to read him and read about how he used delegation. He had vision. He inspired the people. But this is what he did. Under the disguise of night, he sneaks out and he looks at the city. And he's taking notes, and he's seeing what needs to be done, and the resources being what is necessary to get it done. And I want you to know we're trying to be as smart as possible as well. We've got, I think, about 5 staffers that we said you guys are dedicated to administration of our flood reliefs, and that's what they do right now. And because we needed one gatekeeper, Mike Arnold, and he's making sure that we match our resources, what we have, to the needs. And we don't have sideways energy. We don't send in wrong people, the wrong houses, and all this stuff. We wanted to be working together. So he's at this night inspection, comes up with this strategy, and he dresses the people. And here's what he says. Then I said to them, the people, you see the trouble that we're in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins with its gates burned. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer suffer derision. And I told them of the hand of God that had been upon me for the good, and also for the words that the king had spoken to me. And they said, which I hope that you will say as well, Praise Church, let us rebuild. Let us build. What can we do? So they strengthened their hands for the good work. And by the way, they rebuilt this wall in 52 days. And the reason why they did that is because everybody was involved. But when Sanballat, Tobiah, Ammonite servant, Geshem heard of it, these are neighboring enemies, they jeered at us and despised us and said, what is this thing that you're doing? Are you rebelling against the king? Then I replied to them, the God of heaven will make us prosper, and we are his servants. We will arise and we will build, and you have no portion or right or claim in Jerusalem. So here's where Nehemiah excelled. This is what makes him such a great leader. He saw the need, and then he took the available resources, people resources, and he made sure that they had certain spots that they could work in. So there was a group of people. If you'll read Nehemiah chapter 3, all of chapter 3 talks about how he placed certain people in certain jobs of rebuilding this. It goes like this. I'm not going to read the whole chapter. Then Eliashib, a lot of hard names, the high priest, rose up with his brothers, the priests, and they rebuilt the sheep gate. That's it. That's all they had to do. You just take care of the sheep gate. Then the sons of Hasaniah built the fish gate. They laid its beams, they set its doors, its bolts, its bars. And next to them, says the son of Uriah, they repaired something else. It goes on. Next to them repaired something else. Hannah, the inhabitants of Zanoah, repaired the valley gate. Here's one. Malchiah, the son of somebody, repaired the dung gate. I'm like, what? Do I have to get the dung gate? I want the sheep gate. You get the dung gate. It's a dung gate. But here it is. Everybody is involved. A record 52 days to rebuild this massive wall because everybody, they're working together to rebuild. Everybody had a part to play. No one was idle. And here's the result. Chapter 4, verse 6. So we built the wall, and all the wall was joined together to half its height. Here's why. For the people had a mind to work. The people had a mind to work. All right, so you think everybody would be excited, and Jerusalem was, but not the neighbors. The neighbors, Sanballat and these other guys, they're the opposition. They're trying to pull Nehemiah away because they don't want them to rebuild. And here's what happens. Chapter 6, verse 1. Now, when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem and the rest of our enemies heard that I had built the wall and that there was no breach left in it, although up to that time I had not set up the doors and the gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, and here's what they said, do. Hey, Nehemiah, come and let us meet together on the plain of Ono. And what they were trying to do is they were trying to pull him away from the important task that he was doing. And I don't know if they were going to do physical harm or just, hold him hostage or whatever. But they were trying to pull him away. But here is Nehemiah's response. And this is the burden I have today. To say, hey, nobody, none of us have a pass on this. Not like we have to do it. I'm saying, I hope every one of us has a compassion for our brothers, for our city. But I hope we have that compassion for our brothers and sisters, and then we'll all join together as a church and say, what can we do? And here's what Nehemiah says. They tried to pull him away. He sends another messenger back to them. He says, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. What focus? Hey, I know you want to meet with me, but I'm doing a great work, and I can't be distracted from this great work. I'm doing something that's important, and I can't be distracted. Listen, I know there's a lot of good things that's happening. There's a lot of things that's pulling on us, and I'm not saying everybody ought to give all their time for rebuilding and all this. I'm just saying when you have time, I'm asking you, what resources do you have to help your brothers and sisters rebuild? And let's put that together. Let's go smart about this. We have a plan. We're working that plan. We have a triage list. We want widows and uninsured. Widows, we're taking care of our widows. And we're taking care of them. We're working it down. We're trying to approach this as godly and as wisely as we can. Let's put our resources together. And let's make a huge difference. Do you know that the churches are responsible for giving the most help during the floods right now? Listen to this. Washington Times. And by the way, I just got to, I didn't tell the other churches, but you read this. I just got it. We were tearing out a house yesterday. I'd love to say her name. You'd know her, but I'm not. We were tearing out a house of a church, of a family member in our church. And a lady, as we're doing it, pokes her head in the window. It was a trailer. She says, Pastor Reg here. I said, I'm him. She said, could you please come down 5 doors down and cut my carpet out? I haven't been able to do it yet. I was like, I'm going to try. I can't make you any promises because it's kind of late and we had worked all day and our people were going to be leaving. I said, how's your business? Because they got a family business that I knew about. We don't know each other, but I knew they had a family business. She said, I lost my family business. No insurance. It was a diner. It was a cafe. Everything she cooks with, gone. Then she has these 3 homes that she gets rent from, and none of them were insured, and she lost all those homes too. She said for the first time, I would guess 65 years old, she said, for the first time in my life, I have no income coming in. And not even a prognosis or a diagnosis that income could be coming in. What am I going to do? We left, we weren't able to get to it. We'll hopefully get to it today, and I called a guy from the church just to brainstorm. He's a business guy, and he's got a good thinking mind. And I said, hey, how can we approach this next phase that we're going into? Then I said, by the way, we were swapping stories because he's out doing incredible work. I said, there's a lady in this trailer house at a certain place, and we couldn't get to her. He said, man, I got a team in the morning. We're going to wake up. I'm going to get them there, and I'm going to tear it up. And he just sent me a video. And he said, getting there. And he's right there. While we're here worshiping, while we're here, we got people taking care of people that we don't even know. It's just incredible. I want to read this article. It's from the Washington Times. And you know there was a paper. Washington Times. Christians beat FEMA. Faith-based groups, Christian nonprofits specifically, have been busy bees of late. This is on the 12th of September. Today's the 17th. They've been busy bees of late, providing more aid to hurricane victims than even FEMA, the federal emergency that's supposed to swoop into the scenes of natural disasters, assess the situation, and speed the recovery and rebuilding process. Just goes to show where charity exists, government is not needed. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I'm just saying what they wrote. Look at this. This from the Daily Caller. I think that's another news outlet. Faith-based relief groups are responsible for providing nearly 80% of the aid delivered thus far to communities with homes devastated by the recent hurricanes. You hear that? The Church of Jesus Christ has provided 80% of the relief. And you know what? Hey, and I'll be the first to tell you, we as Christians have earned a bad reputation in certain sectors of how we've approached social issues and how we've been and all these things. We've got a bad reputation, but I think it's a good chance for us to say, you know what, enough of that. We just want to show who Jesus is. He gave to us. We're going to give back to you. And I think we can clean up the reputation. I think the church can return back to the times when Jesus had in his mind when he said, and I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. He created a church that would be brothers and sisters and the arms of a body, one single body with many different members who would get out there and would be the solution to the world's problems, not the problem to the world. Early on, I was told, and I'm like very sure this is real, but I haven't fact-checked it, that there was a plague in the early part of the first century, and everybody was leaving that area because they were going to get ill. And the only people that stayed to their deaths were Christians. And that's one of the reasons the churches grew after that fact so quickly, because people saw that they were willing to care for the sick and the dying, and that showed them that they had something real. It was the churches that rose up. See, I can believe this, that 80%, and here's the reason why. I live in Lumberton, and just in Lumberton alone, I think it's Woodcrest Methodist, at the very beginning at the Y, they opened up their church for people to live in. Down the road, Gateway, Chad West, is a distribution center, giving meals out to people. We got other entities that it's associated as followers of Christ, driving down streets saying, free water, free water. We have people going down the streets with toiletries and things, and they're all associated, they're giving out tracts about whatever, don't be discouraged or whatever, but basically speaking life into people. You come to Beaumont, you drive by churches, there are 18 wheelers filled with things that the church is giving out. This church alone, Calvary, sent out today after their Sunday service, they called it, I think, Muck Out Sunday. Wear your work clothes, sending out people into the communities. Walk the streets, and you will see people with either shirts, the same colored shirts, or vests, and all associated with something of Jesus Christ. The church of Jesus Christ is alive, and it is our time to shine. We can't let this moment get past us without us giving what we have. And who's the church? You are the church. You are the church. You make up the church. This is an opportunity. 1,000-year flood, well, 1,000-year flood calls for a 1,000-year response. And I'm telling you, take out your wallet. And I don't normally do this. You know this. I will not ask you for money for our build alone. I will not ask you money, because I told people, I said, you know what? They said, how are you going to pay for your rebuild? I said, it's going to come in. I just believe, it's going to happen, a miracle. I can't wait to see how it's doing. But I'm telling you what it's not going to come from. It's not going to come from me making an appeal to Praise Church, because I've already asked you to give your best for the capital campaign, and I'm not adding that onto you. I'm not asking you to give to the building But I am asking you, if you have extra, to give to people that are victims. I'm not asking for us. It's not going to go to Praise Church. But I'm asking you for the sake of the families that are in our church. And I could go on forever, and they told me, you know, that's why you shouldn't have come to 4 o'clock. Last thing, I got to quit. But I think you have to know this stuff. Every part of a disaster has a certain phase to it. And this disaster is different than Rita. Rita was a wind disaster. This is a water disaster, and it's two totally different things. We lost electricity during Rita for like 3 to 4 weeks. You don't have ice, you don't have water, you're eating MREs and all this stuff. We really don't need distribution for this. This is my opinion, but I think I can back it up. We don't need distribution as much as we did back then. We have water, we have ice, the stores are open. But what we do need is that we need to look at each phase and say, okay, so the rain's coming down, the water's coming up, people are not leaving, now they need to leave. Search and rescue. And we were able on that first day, there were 2 people actually working this from our homes, sending out boats. Praise Church, you had boats, send out boats. Dowling Street, some apartments, park, and back there. And there were other people associated with our church that was actually in Houston, apart from our church, doing work. But after search and rescue, then you have temporary housing, right? So they can't get back in their home, where they're going to stay. So there's a phase, there's a need at a certain time of this disaster. And then when the water goes down, they get back in their homes. Then, or search and rescue, temporary housing, even though, temporary housing still. But the main thing is they look at their homes like, we got to get this thing dried out as soon as possible so mold doesn't grow. So now we're tearing out homes, mucking out homes. But now here's what we're getting to. Now most of the people have their homes, at least their sheetrock off, and it's drying out. There's a few homes that we went into yesterday and that I heard about yesterday that no one had done anything, and those were really, really bad because it's been 3 weeks sitting in this wet. But now here's what we're going into. We're going into a construction time, right? So now everybody's in the same phase. Now they're putting sheetrock on walls and all this stuff. And so I'm looking at this and trying to say, so what's our next move as a church? We were able to get out there with manpower and help people clean out the room. But could we? What can we do next? And we're throwing out all types of ideas. Can our church hire a contractor, pay it from our pocket to let him go out or her go out and sheetrock or run teams of sheetrock and drywall? Could we save our church families thousands of dollars by supporting a salary of one person just for a temporary time? I don't know. I'm just telling you, this is where we're thinking towards. Because at each phase, we want to rise up and do what we can. There's some things we can't do, and the liability we're not going to accept. But I'm just saying, we're going to be talking about this tomorrow in some meetings. We want to be right where it is, because and Paul talks about, there's one body with many members. There's one body. He's like, I got one body, but my body functions because I have many members, fingers and elbows and shoulders and eyes. And when one doesn't work that well, it affects the rest of us. I'm not going to work as good tomorrow if I break my leg. I got these. You probably got all these war marks of getting gouged by a nail. I have yet to get my tetanus though. This is Jimmy Banks. He gouged me with a nail right there. Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate that. You got all these war marks, but he talks about how you have this one body with many members, and he's making a comparison because that's a great analogy. And he's saying that's what the Church of Jesus Christ is like. It's one body, one organism, but it's got many members. And you look around this room today, you're the member. You are a member. I don't know if you're the toe, I don't know if you're the nose, but you are a member of one body. And Praise Church is just a member of a larger body, the Church of Jesus Christ, which thanks God's reaching out to us and we don't even never knew them, and they're giving thousands of dollars to Praise Church. That's how the body works. And when he's talking about this and making this incredible analogy, he says we want it to work together so that there may be no division in the body. So, this leg's wanting to go over here and this leg's over here, and I'm not really cool with splits. So we want them to go in the same direction, that there may be no division in the body, but that the parts that the members may have the same care one for another. Let me read that again. That there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care one for another. Listen to this. So that if one, this is what Paul says the church operate, if one member suffers, that's God's plan. I mean, seriously, what type of church do you want to be a part of? Then you have to be it. When one member suffers, then the whole body suffers. He said that when one member receives honor, the entire body receives honor. The Romans talks about rejoice with those who rejoice, and you mourn with those who mourn. And I think if we will walk this thing wisely and godly, that by the time we come out of this fire, we won't even smell like smoke, like the Hebrew children. Why? God's with us. And I just want to be a part of a church that wants to rebuild. You can't do it all, and I can't do it all. But I'm convinced when we put our little bit a part of this, we can do some amazing things. Amen? Let's be the church. Let's do it.